Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our ICEJ weekly webinar. I'm coming to you from the Christian Embassy's headquarters here in Jerusalem, where we've had quite a remarkable season here. We went from 11-day, basically 2-week rocket war in Israel to a ceasefire heading into last weekend, and now this week, we're welcoming over 500 Jewish immigrants from around the world. So today we're talking about Israel making this incredible transition from a rocket war to Aliyah Flights. And we've got two incredible guests today. Ilan Keith Isaacson, the security chief from the Eshkol Regional Council, right on the front lines of the battle. They're the closest regional council in Israel to the Gaza Strip, to Hamas, and this guy is got a lot on his shoulders 24/7, helping defend their communities from not only rockets, but all the fire balloons and everything else. And we'll also be speaking to Danielle Moore of the Jewish Agency, who has helped put together an incredible week of all these Aliyah flights coming from over 20 countries. And we work with her. She is the lead person at the Jewish Agency for working with Christian groups that help with the Aliyah. And of course, the Christian Embassy has been doing this for 40 years now, and we'll be excited to talk about that. So we're going from this unusual and remarkable transition from the rocket war to these Aliyah flights. I'm going to do just a quick wrap up of what happened during this 11-day conflict for our friend Ilan Isaacson. It was more like 2 weeks because they already had several days of intense battles fighting the fires in the fields before the rockets started flying. But there were 4,200 rockets, give or take, fired by Hamas, Islamic Jihad down in Gaza into Israel, indiscriminate at Israeli civilian population. There were 13 Israeli dead, only one soldier, but 2 children, some Arab, some foreign workers, mainly elderly folks. Some of them stumbled running to their bomb shelters. I think to the 13, you can add at least 2 more people, elderly people who died of heart attacks from the fear of what was going on. 20% of these rockets landed in Gaza. 90% of those that Iron Dome tried to take out, headed for civilian populations, were taken down. I think there were about 160 that actually landed in Israeli cities. And Ilan Isaacson is going to tell us how many of these 4,200 actually landed on his turf, what he's responsible for down there. And when you hear this, you're going to say, this guy's a hero. The IDF fired at 1,600 targets or so in Gaza. They took out 60 miles, over 100 kilometers of terror tunnels, the Hamas's metro of underground links for weapons storage, getting their militiamen around. And there are around 240, 250 plus or minus people in Gaza who were killed. The majority of them were militiamen. The IDF has released at least the names of at least 150 young fighting age men who were members of Hamas or Islamic Jihad or other terror militias. And we're now in this unconditional ceasefire. It's unwritten. The 2 sides were so far apart that it would have just taken weeks and weeks and weeks to come up with a ceasefire agreement. So they just said at 2 o'clock last Friday morning, let's stop firing. Both sides adhered to it. But it's, if someone breaches the agreement, is it really a breach because there's no conditions to it? That's the problem. Hamas has now been joined by Hezbollah in saying, our red line is Jerusalem, no more desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque up on the Temple Mount, no more evictions, no evictions of Arabs living in these 4 disputed properties in Sheikh Jarrah that were part of what they used as a pretext to start this rocket war. Israel, their main interest is getting back the 2 civilians who stumbled into Gaza a few years ago, about 7 years ago, 6 years ago, plus the bodies of 2 soldiers which were abducted. Their bodies were abducted in the last rocket war in 2014. And they're basically saying they're not going to allow money in to rebuild Gaza until these bodies are back. I've never heard Israel condition a prisoner exchange in essence on that, and it's much better than trading them for 1,000 Hamas terrorists or whatever. But that's a little wrap up of where we are on what the IDF called Guardians of the Walls. The Hamas called it the Sword of Jerusalem. I think we're just calling it the 11-day war. If in June 1967 it was a 6-day war, well, this is the 11-day war. And as we go to our first guest, Ilan Isaacson, down the security chief down along the Gaza border, we first want to show a video of him in action. This is a courageous man who's out there on the front lines of this battle. And this was him just a few days ago, first one out of the shelters to see what's happened after a rocket barrage.
Hi to all our friends. We've just had a bombardment of 7 missiles in a kibbutz. I won't say the name of the kibbutz, so we won't be targeted again. We are just leaving the shelter now after 10 minutes. Let's see what happens outside. As you can see, the shelter is next to a playground. And I can see at least 4 hits of this bombardment of 4 mortars. There must probably be another 3 or 4 around the kibbutz. But here we can see very close to us, about 20-30 meters. You can see 4 holes in the ground in the lawn here. Look at the damage, the holes. The shrapnel is all over the place. We most probably will find more shrapnel later on, but thank God we have the shelters. So to everyone that is listening, thank you for the money that you're giving us to buy these shelters. Not that the government is not giving, the government is also giving, but we only have between 5 and 15 seconds to get into shelters here. So that's why we have shelters all over the place here. Thank you for the money that you give to the rescue and search team of the municipality. Thank you for the money for the fire volunteers that I have. Everything is done here. We are very strong because of you guys overseas. The help is so important, and we prove ourselves day after day that we are able to deal with these very extreme situations. This is day number 14. Over 900 missiles have hit the municipality of Eshkol out of 3,500 in Eshkol, into Israel. 900 just in my municipality. That's why we have to be strong. The IDF is winning. The IDF is hitting hard. The IDF, we give them the support. Every civilian here is giving the IDF the support to continue and to hit the Hamas and the Jihad. Thank you very much. Keith Isaacson, Eshkol Municipality, Head of Security.
Okay, we now want to recognize Ilan Keith Isaacson, the security chief for the Eshkol Regional Council. I think I'm going to give you an applause as you come on, Keith. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to address you guys. We've been working for quite a few years. I usually work directly with Nicole, and she knows me for quite a few years. And really, more than to say thank you, I don't know what to say, but it's not only in times of crisis. It's all the time. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I do hope you're getting some rest because you had 2 very intensive weeks there. It started for you even before the rockets started flying with a whole barrage of incendiary balloons, right?
Yes, my wife said on Monday that after the ceasefire. That's it. For the first time, we went for 4 days. I'm now in a hotel in Rhodes for 4 days. She said we're going out of the country, she didn't even want to go to a hotel in Israel. She says, I want to take you away. So we are here, no bombs here and no shelters here. I think I'm going to miss it, but it's okay. I hope to rest good for these 4 days, because I don't know what's going to happen. Like you said, you were right. It's a ceasefire that both sides decided to stop. No agreement, meaning everything is open, and that's also the reason we have to be on alert all the time, strong all the time, and have all the equipment ready for us. Within seconds, the mode is from a regular, usual lifestyle to firing missiles. We are used to it because it's been already 20 years of living like this. Unfortunately, we are used to it. It doesn't mean that we want to continue like this, but this is reality. And when I said on the video 3,500, it's already 4,300 more or less. And in our municipality, we had over 1,300 falls, which is about 30% of all the missiles that were shot in Israel that fell into our municipality. Something more interesting or more bothering to us, a lot of mortars, 120 millimeter mortars, which is a very, very deadly ammunition bomb. It actually, in 2014, these mortars killed a third of our soldiers in the 52 days of what we say, the protective edge war. Mm-hmm. These mortars, close to 80 mortars, we are still counting. We are about 72, but I'm sure there will be a bit more. Almost 80 fell directly into our kibbutzim and mushavim. And I don't know how many people have actually been a couple of meters from a 122 millimeter mortar when it falls. It's not nice. Even I don't like it. Of course, because of my job, many mortars fell very close to me on different kibbutzim and mushavim that I was visiting all the time. I was in the field those 14 days. I'm always in the field with my men, with my security officers. So it's not a nice scene. We tried to take most of the families out of these frontline kibbutzim. We have 11 kibbutzim that are frontline, meaning frontline is up to 4 kilometers away from the border. We also got help from the government, and we also the municipality helped, and we took out between 70 and 80% of the population to go and to different hotels all over the country, because to hear the sirens hourly is one thing that is also not so nice, and I'm sure in Jerusalem you had it a few times. But think of, in the Eshkol region, there were 729 sirens in those 11 days. So it's that one in one way is very hard. But when the mortars fall in the kibbutzim, that is something else. That is actually terrifying. Luckily, in the kibbutzim, no one was killed. We had a few slightly injured. Unfortunately, one of their missiles hit a compound of workers on a mushav 8 kilometers away from the border, killing 2 Thai workers, and injuring another 8 Thai workers, one seriously injured. He's just finished another operation, and he's he'll need another operation in about 6 weeks' time. That was a direct hit, unfortunately. That was very sad. I was the whole day yesterday with the ambassador of Thailand. She came to visit the municipality, and I took her around also to talk to the Thai workers and also actually to see where the incident happened. We have very good relations with the Thai ambassador. And then now, actually, what we're doing, unfortunately, I do all the time because I'm used to it. These escalations, we've had close to 30 escalations. This is the longest escalation, 11 days. Usually it's 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. But this was the longest, 4 days of firebombs and another 11 days of missiles. Just think that what they shot in which was 4,500 missiles. The Palestinians, the Hamas, not I don't want to say Palestinians, the Hamas and the Jihad shot almost the same amount, around 4,300 within 11 days. So it was very, very, very hard to function in our area. The Eshkol region is 40 kilometers of the Gaza border. The Gaza border is 65 kilometers, so we're 40 kilometers. So anyway, we 2/3 of what's happening in what we call the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Now what we are doing, we are seeing if the sirens are good enough, if we need more sirens. We are checking where we need more shelters. We are have a checklist, and we are seeing where we were good, where we were less good, where we have to improve. And this is what we've been doing since already Saturday in the last 4 or 5 days, very intense. Everyone, municipality, army, also together, meetings, where to improve and quickly, because we don't really know, because it's not an agreement, we don't know when it's going to fire again. So that's what we are doing in the last couple of days.
Yeah. Thank you, Ilan, for that information. And I think people need to really understand that he's responsible for these farming communities that are right up near the Gaza border. And within 5 to 7 miles of the border, these communities, they do not have the benefit of the protection of Iron Dome because it only works for longer range rockets. These mortars and rockets that hit them, 1,400 of them, they only go up so high and they come down quickly. You have much shorter time to run for cover, 5-10 seconds max when the siren goes off. And there's no Iron Dome to shoot anything down. You have to have shelters. So we've been concentrating and delivered probably over 100 portable bomb shelters to this area alone, and worked with Ilan for many years now, to not only with bomb shelters, I think that might have been one of ours in the video we showed at the start, but also protective gear that you wear, the firefighting equipment, mobile water tanks and firefighting, and many other things, helping with trauma centers to help the kids. It's all about giving you enough peace of mind so that the families that live there permanently have made a determination to not to run, that y'all can stay there and live as normal lives as you can. We just say kol hakavod to you. Yeah.
Whatever you say is dot on 100%, and a lot of it is the shelters means also resilience. When a family, a kid, when you go to a playground and he sees the shelter, it doesn't bother him. He knows, okay, it could happen. There's a shelter. He runs to the shelter and everything's okay. So the shelters are really a resilience. And of course, like you said, with the fire equipment, we also, with a lot of fire equipment that you gave us, and also fire wagons that I've been using all the time, and communication equipment. Really, it's been, I think I've been working with you for 6-7 years, and it's all the time. So, and this really gives a lot of it is so important. When someone doesn't live here, how all these things are so important. That's why I made these videos on videos to try and explain also that you've been giving us all these years. It's and truly saving lives. There's nothing, you can't put it better in words than just saving lives. And just to another thing, very important, the Hamas and the jihad target and the Hamas, yes, there were children killed on the other side, women killed on the other side. We know that, but we were not aiming, not for children and not for women. We're aiming to Hamas and jihad strongholds. Unfortunately, some of those places are in places where places or schools and something like that. And a lot of times we don't even shoot, even though it's affecting our kibbutzim and shavim. But that's the difference. We do not target civilian population, and I hope we'll never ever target civilian population to try and prove something. No, we are not targeting them. We don't want to target them. They're not our enemy. Our enemy is the Hamas, the Jihad, ISIS, and there's another 20 to 30 different factions.
Mm. Yeah. Well, Keith, we're going to let you go back to enjoying a little vacation time. I know it's well-deserved. We were watching these videos every day that you were putting out, and you could tell it was really some strain on you and everyone, but we're glad you're safe. And we wanted to just say we've raised funds just over the last couple of weeks for we think at least another 20 shelters or so. You know, the orders are in and it takes time for them to be made, but we're going to be delivering some hopefully within the next week. We may see you there, and everyone who's listening in can look and see that when we deliver it. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. So I'm bye.
Okay. God bless you. All right. God bless you. Okay. We now want to bring in, make this transition from the rocket war to the Aliyah Flights by bringing in our good friend Danielle Moore from the Jewish Agency. Danielle is the director of Christian Friends of the Jewish Agency for Israel, and also vice president for Israel and Global Philanthropy. I think she had this last title first, but there's been so many Christians now who become donors for all the things that you do, especially the Aliyah, that you've had this added title to direct, to be the main point person for all the Christian Friends branch of the Jewish Agency. And it's been great working with you for many years, Danielle, and we've had a busy time lately. Can you tell us about it? We had 500 Olim arriving the week after a rocket war. It's amazing.
Yeah, so thank you so much, David. It's really a pleasure being here. And I think it's so important that you chose to do this webinar at this specific time as a way of educating and showing support to people like Keith that are really on the front lines of this so harsh reality. And at the same time, also to be here to say, you know, that we're not just defined by our wars, and we're not just defined by our struggles, but we are defined by our future and our hope for a good future. And what better way to frame that than through Aliyah? And to be able to discuss that today with you and share it with Christian friends from around the world that are supporting ICEJ. And we really thank you for your critical support of the Jewish Agency. You've been there with us, whether it's times of emergency or times of calm. And this week, that really, in a way, it's a time of calm, you might say, that comes after a great emergency. You're here with us as we're celebrating the hope and the future for the Jewish people through Aliyah, as really in just 1 week that comes so immediately after thousands of rockets, we're getting now over 500 Olim in a span of just, you know, less than 7 days. And what makes this even more special than just, you know, the sheer number of it is that they're coming from far and wide, from really all across the world, all 5 continents. We have an Ola that's coming all the way from China. We have Australia. We have every, you know, North America, of course, all these places in Europe, you know, Finland, Switzerland, Sweden, the Netherlands, really just all over the world. And over the time of COVID, it has been such a challenge to bring Olim to Israel. And I'm happy to share more on that with you if you'd like. I know that also this week, what makes it additionally special is that we're celebrating and remembering and honoring 30 years for Operation Solomon, the greatest Aliyah operation really ever, I guess probably since the Exodus, because just in 36 hours, over 14,300 Olim were airlifted out of besieged and war-torn Ethiopia and brought home to Israel. And that was 30 years ago this week, according to both the secular holiday and also the Jewish holiday. In the US, they mark it according to Memorial Day. And here it was really the week of May 23rd to 26th. So I don't know if you want to share that video at this point or later, David.
I think we're going to share that towards the end. It's very moving. It's brilliant, and we just want people to watch that the 30th video in tribute to the 30th anniversary. I think that it's such a clever way it's presented. Here it comes. Are we showing this now?
You want to show the video, or you want me to show?
No. We're going to show your presentation. You know, you mentioned it, the Corona didn't stop the Aliyah. This rocket war hasn't stopped it. It's really amazing how the ingathering has continued. And walk us through it, what's been happening over the last year or so with Aliyah.
Okay, so I'm happy to. So really what we can say about Aliyah is that since 1948, it has not stopped for a day, whether it was the 6-Day War, whether it was the Yom Kippur 1973 war. And during this time of COVID, I believe it was extremely sad. There was 1 week, one almost entire week where Aliyah stopped. It never happened before, and God willing, it won't happen again until we have really all the Jews living in Israel. And here, what we are so fortunate to be able to share with you is that, I'm sorry, just a second.
Just be patient 1 minute. Some interruption. Here we go.
Okay, apologies. You know, COVID times, you know, people drop things off and bang loudly on your door. So apologies for that. So we had 1 really week where we were all praying for Aliyah to be resumed. But despite that, during COVID, there wasn't a stop in Aliyah at all. And whether it meant that you were able to fulfill a dream or whether you were putting an end to a nightmare, the Jewish Agency was there. And I will also say that ICEJ was there because you were supporting us very strongly during this entire pandemic. Another aspect is that you can see that it was really so very global, whether it was, of course, Ethiopia, Mexico. We chartered flights, evacuation flights, special agreements with different governments around the world. Many of them were also had to be kept secret, and with the government of Israel, all resulting in bringing home to Israel over 20,000 Olim in 2020. You can see here the graph of what did Aliyah look like until the pandemic hit. And you can see that 2019 really represented an over 10-year high in Aliyah to Israel, basically more than doubling when you compare 2019 to 2009. We were expecting 2020 to be just as strong, if not actually more, but then COVID hit and kind of changed things around the world. So when we look at the map of Aliyah in 2020, I think it is astonishing that with all the closed borders, the cancellations of thousands of flights, the fact that government offices everywhere were closed, it was simply impossible in so many cases to get documents, to make plans. And despite that, over 21,000 Olim found their home in Israel. You can see here the map of Aliyah, and you can see also very happily that within 2020, we had over 900 Olim from Ethiopia that continued with us into 2021 in Operation Sur Israel that you are a major partner in. And when you think about this, when I say, closed borders and closed offices and, cancellation of flights, you might think, okay, so a person can delay their Aliyah. What does it mean to delay your Aliyah by a few months or by a year? We've been waiting for 2,000 years, so you can wait, a few more months. But in some cases, it's really not a possibility because it becomes a life-saving mission. And this is the story of this little boy here that you see standing at the airport with his parents. His name is Max, from St. Petersburg, Russia. And this is a child that had he stayed in Russia, he would not have made it. The type of cancer that he had, the type of treatments that were available would not have saved his life. And his parents really made the decision that they have to save their child's life, not surprising. And the father, in a moment of awakening, and said, maybe now is the time for us to make Aliyah. We've been speaking about this for years. Maybe in Israel we can find the solution for Max's problem. He emailed our emissary, our shlicha in St. Petersburg. It was the weekend. He didn't expect really anything to happen. He was sure that everything is closed. The world over it's closed. Also, the Jewish agency is closed. But no, we were open. And within a week, they arrived already in Israel with full plans for a program, for an operation to be done at Hadassah Medical Center in Jerusalem. You can see Max and his parents already as he was preparing for the operation. You can see it doesn't look that good. His parents have hope in their eyes, but he just looks, poor boy, exhausted. And here you can see Max and his parents just last week. He has recovered from his operation. He's still going in almost daily to the hospital to receive treatments, but the doctors say he will be fine. He's studying Hebrew still virtually online together with his parents, and they are beyond thankful and blessed to be with us here in Israel. Another example is when we talk about Aliyah from Ethiopia. The government makes a decision in October. It's the height of the pandemic. And the decision says that within the span of the shortest amount of months possible, we will be entrusted by the government to bring home to Israel over 2,000 Olim from Ethiopia. The decision is made in October. How are we going to pull this off the ground is not so clear. Ethiopia is in a civil war. It's a red COVID country. We have to get our staff there. We have to get the government officials there. And yet, by December already, the first flight with 316 Olim, accompanied by the Minister of Aliyah, Pnina Tamano-Shete, the first ever Ethiopian minister in Israel, come to Israel. And you can see here how this transpired over the next months, with the operation almost being completely complete. We had the last flight currently, actually this week, with 55 Olim that could not come earlier because unfortunately they were sick with COVID. So their Aliyah was postponed. And here is just one of the small stories of this Aliyah. Yali Ganesh, the mother, you see here in the center with her husband, with her 4 children, waiting to make Aliyah in Ethiopia for over 10 years, not being able to be with her family, with her mother, Nana. And here you can see really living like a refugee in her own country in squalor conditions, an apartment that's, apartment. It's a mud hut that's no bigger than 70 feet, probably like the size of a Western bathroom, only she doesn't have any running water or electricity. And really waiting and living on her suitcases because she firmly believes that when it is time, God will bring her to Israel. And while she was waiting, her mother was weeping and waiting for her daughter to join her in Israel. And after 10 years of waiting, finally, Yali Ganesh and her family came on the plane, 2 more weeks of quarantine, and they found themselves together at the Ibim Aliyah Center of the Jewish Agency, really together at last. And here, when you look at this picture of them, it looks like such family bliss. You know, this is the Ibim Aliyah Center. And if that name rings a bell to you, David, I don't know if it rings a bell to many others, but Ibim is right outside of Sderot, which means that it's just about 7 kilometers from Gaza. It's a beautiful kibbutz-like environment. The apartments are large, the grass is green, but when rockets start falling, Ibim is in the center of hostilities. And when we look at what Ibim looked like these past 2 weeks, here you see the children in one of the mobile bomb shelters that you're so familiar with. We're just waiting for the siren to pass. These past 2 weeks for our Olim in the south, we have over 3,000 Olim living in the south. And I don't know if you can even imagine, I can't imagine what it's like to be a new Ole, somebody who really is just starting their life in Israel, doesn't understand the language, doesn't understand the mentality, yes, certainly does not understand the political system. To them, you know, Israel is their safe haven. And all of a sudden, you know, sirens day in, day out. And while the staff at the Aliyah Center did everything they could to help and support them, whether it was bringing them materials and information in their own native language, whether it was providing all kinds of therapeutical activities within the bomb shelters, it became very clear that some of them, most of them, just need to be taken out of the south, taken to a place where they could breathe. And we did this also with your help. You can see here one of the rockets that landed in Ibim. I'll get to this picture a little later. We did this also thanks to your help, bringing the Olim into safety in the south. We have taken out nearly 1,000 Olim on these different Shabbat Shalom experiences, the Shabbat of Peace experiences. And unfortunately, in one of the locations, it came already after there was a direct hit. Here you can see an Ole that's living in our Aliyah Center in Ashkelon. You know, Ashkelon compared to Eshkol, what Keith just described, they're very fortunate because they do get Iron Dome and they have a whole, you know, luxurious 30 seconds of warning before a rocket falls. But here, the Olim in the center, they have bomb shelters at the bottom, at the basement of the building. The buildings can have between 8 to 10 floors. You can imagine it takes a while to go down from the top floor. You're not going to make it to the bomb shelter in time. The Olim were spending most of their time in the bomb shelters, but some of them were still trying, you know, to live their lives, to work, to be outside. And here this Ole was coming back from a meeting that he had outside of the Aliyah Center. The siren goes off. The Olim are quickly taken into the bomb shelter. The doors are closed. And this Ole and his friend find themselves outside the gates of the Aliyah Center. They realize there's no way they can make it in time. They lay down on the floor, cover their heads with their hands, and the rocket, sure enough, falls. 2 rockets fall in the parking lot of the Aliyah Center. The man is wounded with a shrapnel wound to his leg. Windows, doors, in the Aliyah Center are all shattered and blown up to pieces. Some of the apartments have huge amounts of shrapnel in them. So thank God that the Olim were not in the apartments and were actually in the bomb shelters. He's recovering at this time. And what I can share with you is, you know, that when you have this situation, you try to do your best. Here you can see one view of an activity that we did also with your support. This is a puppet therapy activity. And, you know, and you get the most unbelievable questions from the children and also sometimes from the adults. You know, you get questions like, who is this Hamas person? Why isn't anyone killing him? You know, they don't understand even the concept. Or we had an Ole from Ethiopia who considers himself, you know, very strong. And in Ethiopia, he once, you know, came face to face with a jackal, and he succeeded in killing the jackal that was threatening his herd of sheep. And he says, you know, let me face Hamas. I'll kill him just like I killed the jackal. You know, it's so hard even to explain. But even without the understanding, the trauma is there. And that's why it's so important also to give this sense of security. We brought soldiers in cooperation, of course, with the IDF that were there also to provide guidance to the Olim on behavior during these times of emergency. and also just to be there as a source of education. You know, the IDF is great also in that. And I don't know, you know, if I was the mother of this little baby sitting there in E-beam and I see two soldiers watching him, I would probably feel very, very good and very secure. So this really brings us to this week. And this week, which we're so thrilled that, you know, with all the rockets and with all the facts that, you know, during these past 2 weeks, many airlines changed their courses, canceled flights to Israel. I will say that not many Olim canceled their flights to Israel. The vast majority of the Olim did not cancel, but airlines in many cases canceled. There were also cases where airlines, because of the security threat over Ben Gurion Airport, they had to land all the way down in Ramon. So, you know, you might think that it's a little thing, but for an Ole that thought that he was going to land in Ben Gurion and within, you know, an hour, he would be already in, you know, Jerusalem or in Tel Aviv, they land all of a sudden in the middle of the desert and are taken 4 hours by bus to the airport to go through their processing, to get their Aliyah certificate, and from there to start basically their quarantine period. And this brings us really this beautiful, happy moment of over 500 Olim from over 20 countries in just 1 week. And you can see here a young Ola from Charles de Gaulle Airport, just coming into Israel 1.5 days ago, you might say, from Paris, France. And I think that she's agreeing that this is pretty super. And from this, I just like to take you to what does the future hold? You know, what does it look like when we think about Aliyah going forward? So COVID is still with us in many parts of the world. We see that, you know, forget about these past 2 weeks, what happened during these past 2 weeks. Also before that, throughout COVID, and in the years before that, there's a trend of growing anti-Semitism. COVID also caused an increase in difficult financial situations in many parts around the world. And I will say that there's one positive thing that COVID did in relation to Aliyah, and that it helped remove psychological barriers. Because if before, a person would think, you know, how can I possibly relocate? What will happen to my job? What will happen about my family and my friends? People through these times of lockdowns and working from home, they realize that, hey, there are more opportunities to study from afar, to work from afar. And whether it's because of a global pandemic that causes me to not see my loved ones for months, maybe not seeing my loved one for months because I made a life choice of moving to Israel, maybe that's actually something that I can live with all the benefits that come with it of, you know, fulfilling this dream of coming to Israel. So we see both these harsh factors that are pushing people to make Aliyah, and we also see this wonderful removal of psychological barriers factor that is pulling people to make Aliyah, telling them that in Israel, they can have a good home. So if we want to look at what did the number of Olim look like in 2019, 2020, I shared with you a little bit of this before. And now just in 2021, January and March of last year were pre-COVID. They had no COVID impact in them as far as Aliyah. So you can see that January, March of 2021 is almost up to par. And the month of March was much stronger than January and February. So we have an upward trend. And what's even more telling than the actual numbers right now is the numbers of opening Aliyah files. For a person who wants to make Aliyah, to open an Aliyah file, it's not, you know, just like picking up the phone and saying, I want to open a file. It's a whole process. So to be at a stage where you provided the documents, where you went through the interview, that your Aliyah file is now what's considered open, it's a real effort, and it shows an indication of real interest. So we typically know that the ratio between opening a file and eventually making Aliyah is approximately 2/3. So if that were to happen, imagine what we could be considering. We could be considering that from North America, we would have 10,000 Olim. Now, I don't know if that will actually happen, but that is what our past experience, that's what indications of the past have taught us. And you can see also how the opening of Aliyah files is continuing now in the early stages of 2021. So you can see that it's continuing to be pretty impressive. And with that, I would like to bring us back to, you know, the bottom line, you know, all this talk about Aliyah and terror and you know, in big terms and scary words like rockets, it all boils down to the beautiful face, the trusting eyes of children, of people who depend on us, on people who need us, people who have faith but don't necessarily have means. And we are there for them to help them fulfill their dreams or end their nightmares. So I'd like to say a big thank you to ICEJ, to everyone that's with us on this webinar. Thank you to you, David, and to your wonderful colleagues at ICEJ. And, you know, God willing, just like Operation Guardian of the Walls, you have been our watchman on the walls. You have been there reminding the Lord not to forget and not to be silent. So thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you, Danielle. I'd have to say, in all the years that we've worked with the Jewish Agency, this most recent time working with you and Isaac Herzog and others there, it's been the warmest relationship of all these years. Always important bringing the Jewish people home, but it's nice to work with good, friendly people who understand the challenges we all face and work together to meet that. Just a couple remarks. Some of these Ethiopian Olim, these are ones that we helped, the Christian Embassy helped bring in during this Operation Rock of Israel. I think it was 2,000 in all. We sponsored flights for around 500 of them, and they've got to spend a bit longer time in the absorption centers for language, learn the Hebrew language, finish the conversion. So you all have a longer period to take care of them. There's also quarantine because of COVID, but some of these folks really, they've been through a tough time with this war.
Yes, very, very much so. And, you know, for everyone in Israel, this has been a very tough reality, but in some ways, when you're raised into it, when, like, you know, Keith said, you know how to recognize a bomb shelter and you know that it spells for you safety, it's very different than when you're a newcomer and there's so much that you're struggling with and so much that, you know, so many questions and so much uncertainty and a general feeling of not being in your comfort zone, you know, far from that. So it makes it so much more difficult. And that's why, especially when Olim, when they know that they're being cared for and they know that they get, you know, thanks also to ICEJ, we've been able to provide, you know, all kinds of board games and toys and activities. And they know that it's coming from people that care about them. And they know that it's coming also from Christians that support them around the world. You know, when we talk about Aliyah, there's also really the aspect of how do you help those that actually were hurt? That it's not only that they've been living with terror, but that they were directly hurt by terror. And, you know, the Jewish Agency has a fund that assists victims of terror. And I have had the very sad honor of going and meeting some of these victims of terror, you know, people that just live in, you know, all kinds of parts of Israel that they never thought themselves as being in danger by Gaza. They live in Ramat Gan, they live in Givatayim, you know, the center parts of Israel. And just within seconds, you know, they're 1 minute, they're putting their children, their babies to sleep, clearing the dinner plates. A second later, there's a siren and they say to themselves, okay, you know, we're probably safe, but we'll do what we're told. And, you know, the kids are already sleeping in the safe room. So the parents go there, close the door. And then there's this huge explosion. Everything shakes around them, fills up with smoke, you know, in just 1 second, their world just comes tumbling down. They escape the building, shattered glass. You know, it's really only thanks to the way that Israel cares for its citizens and the way that Israel has friends that care for its citizens that not so many more lives were lost. And the fact that after this horrendous attack happens, people like Keith or people like those that work in our Fund for Victims of Terror come, you know, on site immediately, give a hug, give assistance. It changes the perspective of a victim from being a person that hate is directed at to a person that love and caring is directed at. It sends them a message that the world can be good and can have hope for them and can have a future for them.
Yeah. Now, the numbers last year, despite Corona, it was 21,000. which was a dip from the year before in the trend, but it was even higher than, say, 2011, 12, 13, 14. It was actually higher than in those years. And now, because Israel has done so well with Corona, it's vaccinated, people trust the healthcare system better here, they think it's safer. And because of rising anti-Semitism, you see countries like France, the Aliyah numbers didn't go down over the last year or so. They've actually going up, and now you expect, I understand, up to 250,000 Jewish immigrants over the next 3 to 5 years. That would be a real surge, and I think it'd take us past that threshold, that landmark of more than 50% of the Jews in the world living back in the land. That'd be remarkable.
Yes, and I will say that for this this vision, this hope, this forecast of having 250,000 Olim in the next 3 years, it requires a lot. It requires a lot, both by organizations like the Jewish Agency that are leading Aliyah. It requires also a lot by the government of Israel, and as you know, that's a little bit shaky at the moment. But we hope to have our person in in high places and to be able to really push forward on this with the government. Minister Tamano-Shata was an amazing partner.
Yes.
Maybe we'll have her again as minister. We don't know. Yes. But the challenge is the housing. It's the employment, and these are also areas where ICEJ works with us, especially in employment. And it's so important if we want to have a breakthrough.
Yes. Yeah, we had a good working relationship with Natan Sharansky, but it's been just terrific under Isaac Herzog, who is officially right now taken a leave as chairman of the Jewish Agency to campaign for the president of Israel, like his father was president. And we just wish him all the best. But it's been a good relationship there. But you're right, the government needs to stabilize here to prepare for all these Olim. But it's a challenge that the Christians out there, we want to just put it out there, help us get Israel past that threshold of more than 50% of the Jews living here. If that's the one bright side that comes out of Corona and all this anti-Semitism and stuff, even Corona blamed on the Jews. What is this? And Israel is the place where their future is. And the Christian Embassy has helped more than 160,000 Jewish people make Aliyah over the last 40 years. Last year, we did over 3,000 out of the 20,000 or so, including 1,600 flights that we sponsored. We're on a nice pace. This year, we're over 1,100 by the time the B'nai Menashe land next week. We haven't even mentioned that there's a flight of this unusual Israelite tribe from northeast India, the B'nai Menashe, coming in, a flight of around 250, and we're doing almost 199 of them with Shavei Israel, our friend Michael Freund, and the Jewish Agency helping with that because of the Corona spike in India. But I think we want to go back to this Operation Solomon, because you said it is the largest immigrant airlift that Israel's ever done. It's hard to think of another country that has done something similar. Over 14,000 Jewish Ethiopians brought here. And it was dramatic. It was to get them out of a civil war, other hardships. I think most people, if they know something about it, May of 1990, the whole fleet of El Al planes, they took out the seats to allow more people to sit. The people sat on the ground, and it was within 36 hours, all these flights, I think it was 30-some flights, that El Al brought these people, and the Jewish Agency was spearheading that. It was quite remarkable. You can watch the Netflix movie. It's on Netflix, the Red Sea Diving Resort, that gives you a sort of more a little James Bond look at Hollywood look at it. But we now have a video that shows a little the children of those who came on that amazing Aliyah are telling the story of it. If we can show that video now.
ואבא שלי גרו באתיופיה.
הם מאוד מאוד רצו לעלות לישראל.
הם תמיד התפללו שהם יגיעו לירושלים. ארץ זבת חלב ודבש.
סבא שלי, זיכרונו לברכה, עבד בחקלאות.
סבתא שלי עבדה בכדרות. המנה העיקרית היחידה שהם אכלו באתיופיה זה היה דאבו ואינג'רה.
הבית שלהם הוא לא באמת היה מגן מקור.
היה מאוד קר, מאוד 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 קר, שילדים מתו.
היה איזה שליט שהוא היה מאוד רשע, והיה שם באמת סכנת מוות, בגלל שהיו שם מורדים שרצו להשתלט על המקום.
המבצע היה מבצע מאוד מסובך, כי היה להם רק סוף שבוע אחד.
הם פחדו שפשוט השלטון שיתחלף, כאילו לסגור אותם בתוך הארץ ולא ייתן את העלייה הזאת. התחילו להגיע שמועות שיש עלייה מאדיס אבבה. הם הלכו ברגל איזה מרחק של יום, משם היה אוטובוסים שלקחו אותם לעוד כפר, ואז עוד אחד לאדיס אבבה ששם הם שהו שנה.
אמא הלכה לגן של הסוכנות היהודית, ואח שלי הלך לבית ספר של הסוכנות היהודית.
דוד שלי עבד במשרד שם של שירותי ציבור. אז אחד מהעובדים שם אמר לו, יש שמועות שעולים אחרי לארץ ישראל. פשוט השאירו את כל הדברים בבית, הלכו לשדה תעופה.
והיה שם המון אנשים,
ואז קרה מקרה מאוד מצער.
עשו לאמא את היד, ואז היא נעבדה ועמדה במקום.
הייתה מאוד מבוהלת, צפוף, צפוף, צפוף.
ואז מצאו אותה.
היא הלכה, חיבקה, ולמטוס. סבא סיפר לי שהעולים עלו בלילה, זה היה מאוד מאוד מפחיד, כי ההרקולס נכנסים מאחורה, וזה חם, הם הרגישו את זה כמו דרקון, שהם נכנסים לתוך דרקון, הם כל כך פחדו.
והיא חיבקה חזק את סבא, כי היא פחדה נורא.
הוציאו את כל הכיסאות, שמו שם מזרונים, וככה ישבו כאלה צפופים, צפופים, צפופים.
סבתות, סבות, דודות, דודים, וכולם במטוס אחד.
כשהמטוס נחת והם הגיעו לארץ ישראל, מאוד התרגשו.
הם נחתו ונשקו את האדמה של הארץ.
זה היה מבצע שבאמת עלו בו המון אנשים, וזה היה מבצע שאיחד בין הרבה משפחות.
אני מאוד גאה בסבא שהוא עזר לאלפי אנשים להגיע לחלום שלהם.
העולים עזרו הרבה יותר למדינת ישראל, בזה שהם היו חלק כל כך גדול בקהילה שכרגע לא יכולנו לדמיין את החברה הישראלית בלעדיהם.
אמא הייתה צריכה לפגוש את אבא ולהוליד אותי.
אני מאוד שמחה שהם עלו לארץ.
אני אוהבת את ישראל, כל גם יש לי בעולם. אני אוהבת ירושלים. תודה שהולדת אותי בארץ ישראל ובאת.
I don't know. I've seen that video already a few times, and I start crying every time I see it.
Yeah, it's very creative and very touching to have the children tell the story. Yeah.
Because the children is what this was for. You know, in so
Yes.
many ways, the Olim themselves, they can be almost like the generation of the desert. They come to the Holy Land, but do they truly come to it with all the challenges of being an Oleh? In many cases, it's the future of the children that will be considered as, you know, the success. They are the ones that will fulfill the dreams of their parents.
Amen. And we're seeing so many Israelis having success stories in business or entertainment, and getting law degrees, becoming officers in the army, and this is great. And I think Danielle, one of the good things about the the Ethiopian Olim who are still coming. There's still, what, 6,000 or 7,000 left in some of the transit camps that are slowly being brought here, and we're helping with that. But they now have a whole community here of 130, 140,000 Ethiopian Jews strong that helps ease their landing and their absorption a little better, to have family and friends in that particular community. So it's a little easier than when they arrived 30 years ago.
Very much so, yes. You know,
Yeah.
one of the boys in the story, so his mother, she's the one that came as a 6-year-old child that was nearly lost there between, you know, the multitude of people. And she's been working for the Jewish Agency in Aliyah centers, helping New Olim from Ethiopia for 13 years now. And during the pandemic, she volunteered to leave her family, leave that gorgeous, you know, 8-year-old boy of hers, and to travel to Ethiopia to be our emissary, to be a shlicha, and to bring, you know, her community back home to Israel.
Yeah, she's great. And you have an incredible advocate in the Ministry of Immigration and Absorption, and in this Penina Tamana Shatta, who's the first Ethiopian-born cabinet minister and Aliyah minister, and she's terrific. She's a fighter, and we know there's good things ahead in this whole area of Aliyah. It is the future of Israel, to keep the country strong. And it's just a real privilege to work with you and everyone else there. I'm glad, you know, more of our people will be introduced to you, you know, as the person who reaches out to the Christian world through this webinar as they view it over the weekend. And just great to have you, Danielle.
Thank you. Great to be here with you.
All right. All the best. That's going to wrap it up now on this week's ICEJ webinar. We just thank you for joining us. And if you want to help support the Aliyah, you can go to our website and you go to on.icej.org/Aliyah. And if you want to help with the bomb shelters down along the Gaza border, you go to on.icej.org/bomb shelters. Either one will take you there where you can help towards these efforts. We're putting in bomb shelters near the border, and we're helping bring Jews from all over the world. Nothing's going to stop this Aliyah. The great ingathering and the building up of Zion continues. And God bless each one of you. Shalom from Jerusalem.
Shalom.